It with Kyran Bracken and Nick Easter. The rugby podcast that doesn't take itself too seriously.
Welcome to Ruck It with me, Kyran Bracken and Nick Easter. Today we'll be talking about the revelations of Sam Burgess and his fallout with Mike Ford, and whether myself and Nick have had any fallouts in our career. And of course, back to the big question of the global season.
Ruck It with Kyran Bracken and Nick Easter.
So Nick, looking sharp this morning, and I can see you're wearing the Sharks t-shirt. Is that over a Harlequins t-shirt? Yeah, look at that. That looks pretty cool.
No, mate, that's literally... I'll tell you what a benefit of this lockdown is.
Yeah.
I don't think I've gone into my wardrobe. I don't go into my wardrobe much anyway, that anyone ever knows me. I get dressed in the dark quite a lot, but I've literally had probably, about 4 or 5 T-shirts and shorts just on rotation in the wash, wear them throughout the last 8 weeks, and this is one of them. So I've been for a run, mates. This is a gym top, so I just stuck it on this morning, went for a nice run, freshen up, feeling sharp.
What's your how long are you doing? Because I'm trying to compete with the Wanstead boys in their 5K run, and I saw one of the coaches doing, like, he did it in 4 minutes 55. I thought, no way he's done that. So I did it myself.
4 minutes 55 for 5K.
Yeah. Sorry. No, 20.
24:55.
24:55. So I tried to beat it, right? So I got to 23:40, and I nearly died. I'm not joking. I nearly died. I remember doing it a lot quicker than that.
Age, pal.
What was your best time?
Mate, I don't do a strict 5K, obviously, but this morning, it came up as 5.6, and it was around 26 minutes.
Oh, no chance. You reckon? Seriously, you're still moving that quickly, are you?
Mate, I felt pretty good, because I'll tell you, I haven't been running for about 3 weeks, but I don't know whether you heard of this, and it's in the plug for anything because I'm not involved with it, but you heard of this sort of insanity workout. Have you ever heard of it?
Yeah, I've done it. I've done it.
Yeah,
fun.
You've done it. Yeah, and so I haven't been doing it every day. You know, the body can't cope with that. I buggered my knee up the first time I did it.
Right. I
was out of action for about 3-4 days, but I've been doing it a bit. And obviously, you know, it's body weight stuff, explosive plyometric stuff, but in your living room, you know. And I actually felt fitter going out for a run than what I was doing before. And I was like, actually, that's got me quite cardio fitter.
It's like, for those who don't know Insanity, it is like Joe Wicks on steroids, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
But I have to say, the one frustrating thing about the Insanity is, you know, the instructor, he does the drill, and he doesn't do all of it. He lets people in the room, and I'm like, you're cheating. You're not doing it all.
Yeah,
but some of the guys in there are so fit. Oh, brilliant. And the women are so fit.
Mate, the warm-ups are the worst. You start the warm-up, then they get faster, and then he goes, right, keep doing that. And as you say, he'll go off to one of his group, and then just say, keep your form right. No, make sure you don't sacrifice your form. And he'll go, dig deeper into the camera. And you're like, listen, mate, it's easy for you to say because you're having a rest.
That's the great thing about being an instructor. So, I mean, the one thing that caught my eye this week, and I guess you may have seen the interview, but Sam Burgess, I mean, wow, what an interview, where he basically labels Mike Ford, his then coach at Bath, a snake. So I want to ask you about it. For those of you who don't know much about it, Sam Burgess signed to play for England, I think it was 2014, signed for Bath, and eventually made the World Cup squad in a short space of time, gets in the World Cup squad. And the big game was, of course, against Wales. Massive game, and an important game to get through the tournament. But he was selected. I think it was inside centre, wasn't he? And then Mike Ford got dropped to the bench. George Ford got dropped to the bench, and George didn't speak to him all week, and he was really grumpy. But the big thing was after the World Cup when they lost, because I believe, so it's a bit of a conspiracy theory from Sam Burgess, because he thinks that Mike infiltrated and affected what was happening with England, and so what we're saying, I think George Ford came on in the last 10 minutes, England were winning, and then England lost, and then by the time England were out of the World Cup, Sam was obviously in the press everywhere because he was supposed to be the great white hope like Jason Robinson. It didn't work out. But he went back to his club, walked into a room to the coach, Mike Ford, and basically, I can't play for you. I just don't trust you. You're a snake. And I just can't play for you anymore. And so I was thinking, oh, my God, he's let the cat out of the bag. But you were involved. So maybe you can tell us the true inside story. Was George grumpy, sulky when he got dropped? Listen, players do get like that. They get grumpy, they get upset. But what was the vibe like? Because I do feel that Sam Burgess was almost put up on a pedestal, and then when it didn't go well, he was almost part of the blame culture, along with the I think it's Chris Robshaw, the captain.
Yeah, mate. Unfortunately, I wasn't part of the squad then because I didn't make the cut. I got brought in after we were knocked out for the Uruguay game.
Oh, right, okay.
But look, I was part, and the other thing is, mate, I was out with a back injury trying to get back in for 6 weeks, so I missed the Denver camp and everything. So I wasn't really around, although I was trying to recover and everything, I wasn't really around the squad as much as I had been the previous 2 camps where, I was fully fit. But yeah, look, I mean, looking back on it, he was definitely made a scapegoat, and people point out, and correctly so, look, we were winning when he was taken off, but that's not to say anything against George Ford, because he was trying to make out that the substitution in that particular game was to make sure he had game time to feel good. Yeah. I don't believe that. I think the substitution in that game was we brought on a kicking 10 and 12. We were winning the game to close out the game, which is what Stuart Lancaster had done before that year. I remember I came back in the squad. He hadn't picked me for 3.5 years, brought me back in. I was on the bench against Wales in Cardiff. You remember the great standoff? I said the great standoff, the big standoff in the tunnel when they wanted to make us wait, and Robbo was like, no. We sort of had a bit of insight, and we won that game. And I remember Danny Kerr was very disappointed he didn't play the game, because it would have been club teammates back together, and he told me about his conversation with Stu, and Stu said, look, we just feel Richard Wigglesworth, Youngs was starting, Richard Wigglesworth will finish the game off. He knows how to close games off. And Danny rightly sort of said, well, what if you need to win the game? I'm there to come up and win the game, which fair argument anyway. But my point is, it was a plan and a strategy throughout that they were back the sort of 15 or 23 to be leading with 10 minutes to go, and then you'd sort of close out the game. That was the hope, and certainly the decision in some of the substitutes. So, he brought Sam Burgess in to start. He didn't start the first game. He brought him in, with Brad Barrett. So that was probably to match the power that Wales had in the centre. And we were winning. I don't know what the score was. I don't know whether it was 3 points or 6 points.
It was 25. It was 25-18 when he went off, and England lost 28-25. Yeah, it does make sense. Bring a kicker on, doesn't it?
So you bring George on for the last, 15 minutes?
Yeah, 10 minutes. 10 minutes, yeah.
10 minutes. 2 kickers to try and close out a game. So I think that was that substitution. I don't think there was anything sort of playing in the mind, I've got to keep him happy, because that never goes down well at any sort of level anyway, does it, when you're doing that sort of stuff, just for participation. Mike Ford, did he win the England job? He'd already been doing it for 6 years. Yes, it wasn't the head coach job. I think Sam was put out by what Mike said in the press when he left Bath after the World Cup, and Mike was pretty scathing on him in the press. And I think Sam just sort of, kept his powder dry, waited 4 years, just recalled what he could recall, remember what he remembered, and thought, well, this is my opportunity to get it out there. And look, there's obviously bad blood between them. And
he said, Mike Ford said,
and he wasn't treated, mate. He wasn't treated. I don't think he was treated well by either organisation. You bring someone like that in, you've got to have an idea of how you're going to utilise someone like that. Because for my money, mate, he could have been a tremendous asset in Union, and he just wasn't utilised the way he should have been utilised. But look,
I think the big thing, and you're a back row player, the big thing, and the question is, what would have been his best position? We had this with Andy Farrell as well. Was he a 6, or could he learn a 6, or could he play 12? I mean, he's such a great ball player, very similar to Sam Burgess in a way. But I think you're right. I think at Bath they were playing him at 6, and then got to England, and ended up being 12. And there's so much to learn in the game, isn't there, at 6 and 12? I mean, I'm not sure. I think maybe he could have played like a 6 or an extra centre But there's so much to learn in rugby, whereas in rugby league, it's just crash it up, isn't it? I know rugby league people might say...
We're going away from, his revelations and what happened. And obviously I'll go in my opinion on it as well, although I wasn't...
What was his best position? What do you think his best position was? What was his best position? What was his best
I
position?
think my personal take is I think he should have been used as a 6. Yeah. And the reason I'll give for that is what was his X factor? His X factor was he was a hell of an athlete, mate. I'll tell you, he
really.
When you're with the elite of England anyway, you've got the best of the best. That guy was impressive. He was explosive, footwork. He loved the contact. So it's like, right. So what is it? What's his X factor? His X factor is being able to make 20 tackles and 20 hit ups a game. Give or take. Right. He's not going to do that at 12.
No.
All right. Did he have the pace and the game management in union to be able to play 12 and the all-court game, the passing game, the kicking game, being able to communicate to the 10? He hadn't had the exposure and experience in the tightest of games and different conditions to be able to transform that quickly. 6, I played 8 because I had a brain, but 6, you don't really have to have much of a brain. You can pretty much, you get told, do this, mate. You'll be as influential as anyone else. Yeah. But you could have used him, mate, in a playmaking. Yeah. So you still could have used him. You would have used him off short lineouts, right? Get him in the game. Billy Vanapola. You're not going to use him in a lineout, are you? Get him either as a decoy or you get him getting over the gain line first phase. You can use him second phase, third phase. Scrums as well. You could have been smart with how you use him, but also use him as a ball player. Sometimes, he could have been out the back of one of those pods. Who's to say it should be a back that's out the back of one of those pods? Look towards where the game's going. If you've got a skillful, a big guy who's skillful and has got footwork and playmaking ability, which he did have, but it's harder to transform the playmaking ability when defences are so far back in league and all the other nuances. Because the ability in contact, which he was superb with.
Because I was at
you could have added that to his game.
I was at Saracens when Andy Farrell turned up, and you could see. A really good athlete, got a great left boot, really dedicated, really interested in everything that was going on. Never quite, I think you're right, at 12, I think you've got to be a supreme, I'm going to call it Olympic athlete with huge pace. And I don't think Sam Burgess or Andy had that at all. They didn't quite have the pace. And so I think the next best thing is probably a 6, and actually to having them roaming around the pitch, whether they're a playmaker or they're crashing up, like you say, and that would have been better. But I don't think...
I mean, it's interesting you say about the pace, and I did mention it. I don't think that, he was fast enough. You look, Owen Farrell plays at 12. He's not the quickest 12, albeit a world-class player. Jamie Roberts, certainly not as quick as Sam Burgess. Sonny Bill Williams, not straight gas. And I think England saw him in the mould of Sonny Bill. Big guy. The way England played compared to New Zealand weren't going to get him in the game as much as if he played it. And Sonny Bill had a bit more exposure to rugby union, down in Toulon, coming back and forth, than Sam had sort of, 9 months to learn the trade. But look, it's done now, isn't it? It's done now.
On fallouts, though, on big fallouts with coaches, I just wonder in your long, illustrious career, if you had any fallouts with coaches like I might have had in my career.
Well, let's hear about yours to begin with. Then.
Oh, who am I? All right.
So you're obviously, basically what you're portraying is you're a really divisive, difficult character who wants to get his own way. Is that what you're telling me, Brad?
Yeah, that's me all over. Of course it is, Nick. Of course it is.
You're a scrum half after all.
Yeah, of course. Well, listen, obviously, at the time, it was Buck Shelford came in as coach of Saracens. Yeah. Now, we went through so many coaches. It was Francois, it was Rod Kafer, it was Steve Diamond, whatever. But at the time, we ended up with Buck Shelford. And I remember he comes in for pre-season and he says, right, boys, training in the morning. We're all like, okay, yeah, fine, whatever. And he says, I'll see you at Trent Park at 5. And we're all looking around going, did he just say 5? So he got us at a local park at 5 in the morning. So we had to get up at 4:30. And if you know Buck Shelford, he comes from all the military background and all of that. So we end up training at 5 in the morning, going for like a 40-minute proper running hike in the woods. And all these props are just all over the place. Not good. So he was properly old school.
Was he taking part as well, was he?
No, he's just with his whistles. Run to the top of the hill, back down, run to the top of the hill. If you tear something or something's not quite right, he doesn't care. You're soft, you're weak. So he was proper old school. But so the rest of us were used to sort of like international rugby and proper coaching and stuff. But he was like proper 5-on-5, like a ruck, scrap, whatever, win the ball. And he didn't care if you were injured, you were weak. So it was just awful. And
that must have been quite surprising, because although we're going back a while, New Zealand, by general consensus, are always sort of a few steps ahead, aren't they? And they're very pro the sort of speed of ruck ball and playing the game, at pace with zip and execution. Yeah. And they were in his day. He was part of that great All Black side of 87, sort of 86, 87, 88, wasn't he? And if that's what he bought, you must have been sort of surprised. You just said that we were used to international coaching and good coaching. He comes in, it's like, well, I would have thought he would have taken it up a level.
No, so what he basically went from, I remember my amateur days at Bristol, and I would turn up on a Tuesday night and I'd be with the forwards, and every Tuesday night there'd be a big bust-up, there'd be a big fight.
Oh, yeah.
And as far as the coaches are concerned, that was brilliant, all right? But they would actually precipitate it by having drills where it was 1-on-1 and 3-on-3, and it was just ridiculous. And there would be stitches after training, and you were probably privy to that when you were in the early in your career. But for me, it was just incredible. And I went into obviously professional area, and then suddenly Buck becomes coach, and we went right back to the days where it was dog eat dog, and the training was really long, and the analysis wasn't very good. And after a while, people are starting to get annoyed. But so the big fallout was, it was just we were about to play Bristol. It was my old club, so I think it was Bristol or Bath, something like that. And basically, Sky were doing an interview with Buck Shelford as to why Saracens were struggling and losing. And I think I was captain at the time. And he basically said to the camera, he said, we're losing because we're lacking leaders, right? So anyway, as our session had finished, Sky came up to me and said, can we have a quick word? We want to do an interview with you, Kyran. We just had a word with Buck Shelford, your coach. You've lost the last 5 games. Massive, massive game this weekend against Bristol, Bristol, I think it was. You need to get out of relegation fight or whatever. And he said, apparently he says the reason why they're losing is because they lack leadership. So I'm sitting there going, you wanker. So I've just looked at the camera and said, well, pot kettle black, isn't it? So that's what I've said, right? Sure. Oh my God. So it's everywhere now. It's everywhere. Pot kettle black, Bracken slams, coach slams player. Anyway, so the next day he phones me and said, come in, we need to clear the air. So I walk in and he says, what do you mean by what does pot kettle black mean? I said, well, you're saying I'm lacking leadership, and I'm saying maybe you're lacking a bit of leadership. Is what I say to him. And then he says, I never said that to the camera. I never said that. I said, well, I'm told you did. No, I never said that. So I had to phone up Sky, and anyway, it was all anyway. So the good thing is I had a cracking game against Bristol. I didn't score a try, and we won the match, and big celebration. But on the way home, we were all singing like "Pot Kettle Black, Pot Kettle Black." It was brilliant, but it didn't last long. He didn't last long at Saracens. But that was my
well, I'm going to ask the question. Did he say it to camera? Was there evidence?
Yeah, no, he did. Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So just lied.
But he just lied. But my other one, and this wasn't a proper fallout, but it was a funny moment. Francois Pienaar is coaching a team that are losing, Saracens. So he's a World Cup winner. He can't take losing. He's a winner, obviously. And he brought in one. We kept getting marched back 10 yards by the referee for speaking back to the referee. So as coach, he said, right, anyone talking to the referee, I'm going to give you a £50 fine. Right, this is what he says. I think Tony Diprose was the captain. So we go into the next game, and being a little scrum half, you're always talking to the referee or whatever. I'm shouting at the referee, and we get marched back 10 yards, right? So they have a penalty. And anyway, 15 minutes later, I do the same, march back 10 yards. So now in the video review, he's going, £50 fine. And then 10 minutes later, £100 fine, right? And it goes on. I'm up to 150 quid now, right? So then Francois, who was playing in the actual match, shouts something at the referee, right? and we got marched back 10. So I said, Francois, can you stop the video? I said, can you rewind it a bit? And he rewinds it. I said, so I pointed at him, I said, £50 fine. This is what I said to him, right? Oh my God. This death stare. I thought, Kyran, that was not wise. That was not wise. Anyway, so I walk into his room. Who the fuck do you think you are? And he's properly rinsing me. And I went, yeah, but you create the rules. I'm just saying, we march back 10, you pay £50. And then
so he was doing a bit of Dominic Cummings, was he?
He was doing a bit of that. But so have you never had a fallout with a coach?
Oh, mate, we've had strong disagreements. Certainly challenged them and had big disagreements. But I mean, how long did those fallouts last, though? I mean, was that sort of it? Was there bad blood after that? Because after all of mine, it's sort of right. Okay, thanks. Let bygones be bygones, sort of thing. You've aired your views, you've aired mine.
Yeah.
No, sort of thing.
Yeah,
it wasn't a case of we ain't speaking for the rest of the year.
No. We're grown men. It was fine.
I'm getting you out of the club. Or whatever it fine.
It was no. It was none of that. There was none of that. There were just moments when I think of the Sam. He's been festering for years, wanting to say something. But something you said earlier, and I had an incident like you had. I'd ask you about the incident in the tunnel in the World Cup, because we had an incident in 2003, which was not quite on the tunnel, which was, do you remember England ran out supposedly the wrong side and refused to move against Ireland? But so remind me of your one, the one in Wales. What happened there?
That was, I think Graham Rowntree was our forwards coach, and he just got a bit of insight. I don't know how, but found out that Wales were just trying to play a little bit of mind games, like they always do under Gatland. When they stood up to the haka or whatever and didn't walk away, or New Zealand do the haka indoors. He likes a few mind games. It was the first game to Six Nations, big build-ups. And the last time England went to Cardiff, they got the pants pulled down, if you remember 2013.
Yeah.
So,
smashed.
And, it's pretty similar teams. And he got an inkling. He said, look, he said to Robbo and a few of the guys who are going to be at the front, he said, when you walk out the change rooms, don't walk out and carry on onto the field, because they're going to make you wait 5 minutes. That's their plan.
Okay. Yeah.
So Robbo was there, and I can't remember who the ref was. I think it was Jerome Garces, actually. He was going to say, come on, you got to go. And he's like, we're not going until we see them. So until they're out there changing them and they're on the opposite side facing, we're not going. And he's like, no, you've got to go. You've got to go on the field. You've got to go on the field, because they'd obviously briefed the refs, or might have told the refs, look, let them go out first. We want to come out second. There's a few things we need to do or whatever. Yeah. And they'd probably try to adjust the timing as well, so making sure that England got out early. And we just stood our ground, mate, similar to you guys did in 03. Stood against them, no, until we see him. And then Alan Wynne-Jones, I think, led him out back then. Or was it Sam? I think it was Sam Warburton. I was at the back. I was on the bench. But
because the Ireland one,
you've got to make a stand, mate. And people talk about the psychological games in rugby, and a lot of people just say, "What do you mean? It's not going to affect a catch and pass and tackle." But it does make a huge difference. If you don't make a stand there at their home stadium in that bear pit that is the Millennium Stadium, then you're basically conceding to them, and you're basically saying, "Well, you can dictate to us for the rest of the game," and we weren't prepared to do it.
Well, we see it in football, don't we? And we remember, I think it was the Man United and Man City, or Liverpool. There's a few standoffs in the tunnel, but for us in 2003, whenever, like you say, the psychological advantage to start the game, it's always great to have the opposition waiting for you for ages, especially when it's cold. So this game against Ireland is a Grand Slam decider for us. If we win this game, we win the Grand Slam. We'd failed quite a few times against Wales and France and Scotland, nightmare. So this is crucial, and this is leading into the World Cup. It'd be great to be Grand Slam champions. So before the game, we're talking about what they might do before the game in the tunnel. We say, well, what they're probably going to do is get us to go out there, wait for ages. It's going to be a nightmare. But also, they're probably going to make sure there's a crash on the motorway so that we get there late. And there's going to be a nightmare trying to get to the ground. And they're all going to try and get under our skin, Clive Woodward says. So we won't let that happen. But Martin Johnson, he's just one of the best, isn't he, in these scenarios? So we run out, and basically we're told as we're out there, when we go out before the anthems, that we're told to go stand on one side. So we run out, and Ireland don't come out. They don't come out. Someone comes up and says, you've got to line up. So, well, Ireland aren't here yet. Where are they? Where are they? So we line up one side. Ireland come out. They go into like a circle and have a chat. And it's now we're standing there in this lineup for literally 5 minutes. And like 1 minute's a long time, isn't it? Like it's forever.
Well, they were going for the Grand Slam as well, weren't they?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so that's why I call it the Grand Slam decider. Anyway, so we realised after just standing there for a while, Martin's getting really pissed off now. When he gets pissed off, his brow comes down and he starts wandering like a caged lion. He gets really aggressive, and anyone who comes up, he just swears at them. He says, "Where the fucking hell are they? Where the fucking hell are they? Get them to line up now. Get them to line up now. This is a fucking joke." So he's walking around, he's shouting at people, and then they come down, and as they're coming over, they realise that we're lined up on the wrong side because we lined up on the side that we were kicking off from. Okay, so someone said, "No, England, you've got to move down to the other end so that the presidents or whatever can meet England first and then Ireland," right? Something like that. And basically, Brian O'Driscoll's, I think he was captain's going, "What do I do here? England won't move." Someone comes up and says, "You've got to move now 25 metres." And John who looks, he said, "I'm not fucking moving. I've been waiting here 5 minutes. They can fucking move," right? He's swearing at them. This is brilliant. And so all the crowd go like see what's happening and see that we're not moving. And I'm standing just a few up from Martin Johnson. And these TV officials, "You got to move, get to move. You've got to fucking get up there now." And he's thinking, "Fuck you." It was brilliant. And then, so the Ireland decide to walk to the other side of us. So it's really, non-symmetrical. The whole thing looked a mess. And then the crowd start realising over the radio what's happening. England won't move. But the fact is, we wouldn't move because they'd fucked around for 5 minutes. They'd really pissed us off. I think we won the game 56-9. We absolutely smashed them. But that was a moment that, for Martin Johnson as a captain, massive psychological advantage, because Ireland then suddenly are going, "Hang on a sec, why are we standing down there? They're not moving." So suddenly it was like a rock in their face. It was like, "You're having it." And people think that we planned it. People think we were in the change room going, "What we'll do is we'll go on the wrong side." It wasn't planned, right? They just messed around, and we came out the better, I think.
Yeah, but sometimes it doesn't work, does it? As I said, Adam Jones told me this, as I've just mentioned. Wales always used to like a few mind games under Gats, and he says, with a hooker, out of respect, you should walk away. They lay down the challenge, you walk away.
Yeah.
So he said, "You're going to stare it down." And I don't know whether you remember that game. I can't remember what year it was. They stared it down. Apparently, they got beaten by 45 points. So it was like, I don't think we'll do that again. So there's psychological warfare, mate, and there's psychological warfare. Sometimes,
no, there is. Sometimes
it can have an effect. But ultimately, mate, there's 80 minutes of rugby to be played, isn't there? So
yeah. Now, listen, the last few chats we've had, we've talked about the global season, we've talked about the money in the game, talked about players moving, but it'd be a good chance now to talk about the fact that it looks like the players are coming back to play in some form or other, as in train. The date fixed for starting actually matches is we don't really know, but it's.
You do know it. It's my birthday.
Oh, is it?
15th of August, mate. They're the greatest date in the diary.
So it's a bit weird. I mean, Sale, I don't know whether
Premiership, isn't it? Premiership sort of said maybe the 14th on the Friday there might be one or two games, but the 15th of August is the weekend. But this weekend, Super Rugby New Zealand's back, and they've come out this morning, and they've said that they're not going to have any restrictions on crowds, the number of people in there. They can fill the stadiums. So wow. I will be getting up. I think the Saturday games are being screened at 8:15 a.m.
Yeah.
And the Sunday games at 4:30 a.m. Mate, I've been dying to see rugby. I'm getting up at 4:30.
Are you seriously getting up? You're going to get up at 4:30, mate?
No, I'm not. No. I'll have it on record. But
Dan Carter's back, isn't it?
Yeah, but brilliant effort from New Zealand all round, mate, to get that going. And the other thing from coaching, just regards from coaching last year in Super Rugby, those New Zealand derbies were something else when you watched them. I just remember some of the speed, skill, and ferocity of some of the games, and it wasn't overly structured. Like our game's very structured up here. It wasn't overly structured, but it was magnificent to watch, and it was just some of the most sensational rugby that was played down there. And with this obviously being a domestic tournament in New Zealand, and everyone's fresh now, everyone's fit, everyone's looking forward to playing. They appreciate the game again because they're not being flogged to death. I expect to see some top quality rugby of all kinds. But they aren't they bringing in a couple of law changes? So a red card's 20 minutes. Isn't that right?
I don't know. I know we're talking about the orange
for this particular competition, they're saying if you get a red card, you'll be sent off for 20 minutes. You'll be allowed back on. It's like, well, hold on a second.
That's going to be brutal.
That's hardly punishment if someone's just going in with a flying shoulder to the head.
Well,
I might be wrong.
Do you know what? Do you know what though? My favourite quote of this week, and I don't know whether you saw it, you probably did see it, was Eddie Jones. He was interviewed. He was interviewed about
I saw that,
New Zealand rugby, and for those who don't know, what a line. He said, mate, New Zealand have got the best young players in the world. They've got the best 3 academies in the world in Fiji, in Tonga, and Samoa. I thought, oh my God, boom. I mean, that is properly condescending, but quite funny, but almost true, though, wouldn't you say?
It is true. It is true.
Why, it is a thing, though. Just we'll finish off and talking about the skill level in New Zealand. Just out of interest, with such a small note, why is it their skill level is so good, let's say, compared to, let's say, European rugby? Is it because, they throw a ball around, on the beach, or is it because of the coaching, or is it just it's more of a national sport? Like, obviously, we have football and we're very good footballers and rugby players. We don't have the weather. We don't go out and throw a ball around as much. Do you think it's to do with the coaching, or do you think it's more to do with the fact that their lifestyle out being able to play, in the beautiful weather allows them to do it? What do you think? What's your take?
Well, I don't think the weather's going to do it, Brett, because that South Island gets wetter than Manchester most of the year, and it's right. Bloody cold down there near the Antarctic. Look, I don't know the answer, but I can certainly speculate. Did a bit of CPD out there, trying to get to the bottom of things like that. It's embedded in their culture to begin with. Yes, they might only have 6 million or whatever it is, but everyone wants to be an All Black. Girl or boy, when they're growing up, they want to represent the black jersey, international level, the senior level. They want to do it. Just about every single person wants to do that. And the basics are taught really, really young, and the basics just being able to catch and kick off both hands, tackle well, and the breakdown. And they have a real emphasis on those sort of things. Your catch pass, your kicking ability, doesn't matter. You don't know what position people are going to be, whether you're forward or whatever. Breakdown and tackle technique. And I think when they get into the sort of system, and obviously they're playing a lot of it as well, every spare moment they're playing within a garden, they're trying new skills out and things. And I think also the philosophy over there about playing the quickest rugby, running teams off their feet has always been a New Zealand thing. And we're going out there, we're playing, we're unpredictable. We're going to throw it around our dead ball. If we see an opening, if there's one little glimmer of opportunity, we'll have a go. Whereas here it's a little bit more, actually, we don't want to take that risk. We're risk averse. Whereas there, they'll have a go. And it doesn't matter, mate, their weather's just as bad as here over there. It's not Australia or South Africa where it's hard grounds all round. And but it's just ingrained in their philosophy and culture. And then when they get to the school system, as we know, and we might have said before, they have the weighting system, don't they? Where they've done it by weight.
They still? So, I didn't know. I didn't realise they still did that. I thought that was
well, I'm not sure if they still do it, but it's. I mean,
think so.
You just got to logically think about it, haven't you? If you've got a big lumper there that he's playing with, but he has to play a couple of age grades above, he's going to have to find other ways to put his teammates through holes or to manipulate a weak shoulder or space, rather than just running straight through someone, which is what happens all around the world.
Here's the thing I noted mostly about playing against the All Blacks is I would say that we had as skillful players as them, but I think where they separated from the rest was really in the pack. They would have front row forward, second row and back row who were just really, really skillful compared to.
So hold on, mate. You just said we had just as skillful players in them, and then you say
no.
Their pack were more skillful, but that means you didn't have more skillful players.
No. Okay, all right. Don't be pedantic. What I'm saying is, in New Zealand, hookers, props, they can offload, they can pass off both hands, and I think we've been trailing behind. I'm talking about in the backs. I think Yeah, probably they are a little bit more skillful, but I would say that we have quite skillful players. But I just noticed in the pack, especially when you wouldn't expect a hooker to suit a little flip pass.
But,
you know what I mean?
But you look at us now, and we've caught up certainly from a skill level point of view.
Yeah,
there's
we
a couple
have.
of other things. There's a couple of other things there as well, mate. Is at the highest level, whenever I played and you played and everything, their danger was always really in the back line. Look, they play a fast brand of rugby, but as Eddie Jones rightly points out, when you get those big Fijians and Samoans and Tongans over and they're on the wing and in the centre, there's massive yardage and line breaks to be made and killer line breaks there rather than sort of in the tighter exchanges. And also with their coaching, they invest in their coaches over there, and everyone conforms to playing very similar. I'm not saying exactly the same, but a similar template in terms of how they defend, how they scrummage and restart the game, how their line-out defence is, how their line-out attack, and how their attack is, and how they approach the breakdown. So everyone's joined up in terms of exactly what the techniques are and the philosophies and mindset regards every aspect of the game. So, it's just sort of seamless throughout, that they just have this, throughout the age groups, throughout the schooling, and then when you get into the professional system, the top of the pyramid's where everyone aspires to be. Sometimes people start at the bottom, whereas they actually start from the top and filter it down in terms of this is how we want, our philosophy, our mindset, our skill levels to look like.
I think being centrally contract really helps that, though, and I think they can manage the players a lot better than we can. We're always in France and England, we're always going to be fighting against the system. But it'd be a good chance to talk now about what's going to happen in the next few months. Obviously, there's talk, and you might have a bit more inside knowledge. There's a bit of talk about this global season, about the fact that maybe finishing this season and the European calendar and then starting the next season in January to try and perhaps collide world calendars. So that's quite interesting, which is almost forced upon us with coronavirus. But there's a lot of, I don't know whether you've been reading the papers, there's a lot of nostalgic writers talking about the allure of playing in the winter months and the Christmas time, and said it'd be a massive shame to bend over and play at a time of year when they don't necessarily need to. But it sounds like there's an opportunity, I guess, to change the world calendar, and there's a big push for it, isn't there?
Yeah, I'm speaking to a few people in the game. I don't think anything's been set in stone, but there's a meeting coming up very soon between the world powers, if you like. We've spoken many times about how many stakeholders there are in the game, and everyone wants their slice of the pie. About doing exactly that, Brax. As we were talking about before, that get the season done, the Premiership season, Europe done, and then restart in January. And possibly, look, we don't know, but that's what we're talking about. Is you start off with the Six Nations and the Rugby Championship in both hemispheres. You then go into your club game, which will be mainly in the summer for us, the winter still for them, and then you finish off with your sort of autumn internationals at the end of the year. So it will sort of be international, club, international. And if we just take it as read, let's just use that as an example. It might not be like that at all, because we know how hard it is to get anything through in rugby. But what do you think of that? What do you think about starting the season off in January for a start, then go straight into the Six Nations, then the club game, and then the international?
I think I do think it does make sense to collide the calendars. I do think it sort of strategically makes sense, player welfare. I don't like sometimes the idea of actually you play for your club and then suddenly it's Europe, and then you play internationally and then suddenly you're back, and then you sort of, it's all over the place. But I do think the one thing that I do particularly like, though, is I do like to see my Premiership rugby in the winter months. I do like it. And also you've got to remember, if we then go to start playing in the summertime, we're now colliding with Wimbledon, we're colliding with other sports, and I just find it, I don't know, there's something quite nice about that winter rugby. But again, maybe I'm just old school.
Well, you've changed your tune, mate, because the last few times we've done this recording, you've been saying you want summer rugby.
No, I want it all. I want everything.
Nah. No, I mean, look, I'm of a similar view. I've said it before. There's multiple reasons. We spoke about it. You got the community game, the amateur game, the school game. If you haven't got top flight rugby on, who do they look up to? Who are their role models? Will they fall out of fall away from the game and take up something else. The other big thing is, rugby, if it's in the summer and club rugby in the summer, so if we look at the internationals in sort of February, March, April maybe, and then October, November, if that's what they're looking at. Okay, well, if you're looking at June, July, August, and that's when the Premiership in Europe's going to be, and this is where the club rugby game's really got to basically get the money back in the game and get the interest back in the game and grow the interest of the game. You're fighting against Wimbledon, the Open Championship, a football tournament every 2 years, whether it be World Cup or the Euros, the Olympics every 4 years. It's like, well, you're competing with all of this. And actually, that is going to do you far more harm, in my opinion, in terms of trying to grow interest in the game than good. Yeah, it's just going to be too much sport on TV.
I agree.
And also, it's going to be a very different look for a lot of traditionalists, because we've also got to remember that a lot of your rugby supporters are people that know the nuances of the game, accept the complications within the laws of the game. If you bring a game to the summer to try and get the new eyes watching or whatever it is, and you've got a complicated game anyway with the laws, and then you're competing with games that they know that they love. They love Wimbledon, they love the golf, they love the Olympics, or they like the football and Euros. They're not going to be watching it.
No, you're probably
in the winter, it's competing with less. I like the fact, just from a purely rugby point of view, that it asks more questions of your squad and your tactics. You start the season, the first 2 months, it's nice running rugby, weather most of the time. Then you get into the sort of, all right, November, it's getting a bit cold, but the pitch is still hard. Then December, January, beginning of Feb. Okay, the pitches are better at the highest level now, but they're still, you're relying a lot more on the sort of territorial and set piece game than you were before. Less sort of ball in hand time maybe, and then it opens up again towards the end of the season. And it asks questions of you, and it gives variety to the game as well.
They have said Super Rugby has lost its allure because it becomes a bit like basketball, and it's like throwing the ball around and all sorts. So it'd be interesting. What do you think Rugby League has been affected by the way they've changed? When they play and stuff. Whether Rugby League have struggled a little bit. Don't know. It's interesting, isn't it? But a few players now this week have announced their signing. So Joe Marler has decided. I don't know why. I just had this feeling that he'd had enough, especially after
he's Quins through and through, mate. He's Quins through and through.
Well, he signed for another 4. Is it 4 years? How old is he? 32. I mean, that's great for Quins.
No, he's 30. I think he's 30.
Is he 30? Yeah. But a few other signings. So Ben Spencer's gone from Saracens to Bath, I think, for 3 years. That's a great signing for them. I think he's a cracking player, but still up in the air with a few players. Good to see.
He's just on loan for a year, isn't he?
Oh, is it? Well, I read it. Yeah, I'll read in the rugby paper. Let me just see this. Yeah, no. Spencer signs for 3 years at Bath. No, so he's gone for 3 years. Yeah. So, but Itoji's still not declared where he's going to go, and I'm guessing though that the possibility of going to France is maybe not there now with less money in the game.
Well, I think also that I think England have said he would fall into the category.
That's right.
And it would affect his Lions chances, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So here's the thing: we're at that moment now with money. I mean, I think you may have heard about Bill Sweeney talking about the finances of the RFU. I mean, they're already at 100 million debt. And I think part of their bylaws within their governance is they can't take more debt than 100 million. So apparently Bill Sweeney said they're going to have to change that and get another 50 million. But again, I mean, how do we get out of this absolute mess? I mean, coronavirus, really has. I mean, the TV money, I don't think is enough to allow clubs to survive. But certainly internationally, a stadium like Twickenham, it's millions and millions to operate. And for them to have a socially distanced match in the autumn is just going to kill them. And actually now, I think the idea, and it comes back to where all the money is. The money's in, I think, it's in international games. It's not necessarily in club games. Yes, European games it is. And I think if we can create competitions, whether let's just say, I've said it before, whether Six Nations become home and away in 1 year, you probably the amount of income you could generate just from that. And that could then trickle down into the clubs. I don't know. We're a bit of a mess at the moment, but with the mess, there's opportunity. But I don't know. I just don't know the right answer where the clubs and the unions can get money from. With no people in the stadiums. it's just
I mean, it's always going to be a problem. There is no answer. They can't get people in the stadiums apart from a greater TV deal, is there, Brax? And
exactly.
I think we've just got to sort of hope that there's enough players in the market, and that this lockdown experience has driven everyone to want to watch more sport and be desperate for live sport. So if there's 2+ players in the market come the TV rights up next year, that they can get a good deal out of it. Despite what's going on regards social distancing, whether it's still involved or the measures are still there. Look, I mean, it's simple numbers and simple maths that it can't survive if it carries on, into next year. It will survive, but it can't survive very well, and it'll take a long, long time to get back to any sort of level footing. Just going back to that global calendar as well, we spoke about it, didn't we, last week? Doing a pre-season in December and January, right? Mm. So you finish. So if you're a club player, so again, we're talking about. I've lost you there for a second.
I mean,
we're talking about if you're a club player, not an international player. So your club season won't start. So let's just say February, March is Six Nations. Club season starts beginning of April, will end at the end of September, right, or middle September, let's say.
Save me.
Right. Yeah. So that means in the middle of September, you're just a club player. Middle of September, you get 4 or 5 weeks off. So let's just say the 5 weeks takes to end of October. That means you're back in training at the beginning of November. You're not playing a game till beginning of April.
That's a long time.
So that's 6 months. No, sorry, 5 months of winter pre-season. How many warm weather camps can you go on, mate? What are you going to do with yourself? The way they're looking at the moment, going international, it's like sod the club player that doesn't play internationals, Or some people might say, well, I've got 5 months off, but you won't have 5 months off. You'll be coming in bleak, darkest winter months, down and ups, hitting pads in the mud, in the driving rain, right? And you'll be literally counting down the days come Christmas time. Counting down January, February, March.
Yeah, no, it would be horrible, wouldn't it? Training those winter months, but listen, some people love playing it, would like to play in the summer. But just from a financial point of view, though, it seems to me that the players and even more so the coaches are going to be, if we can't get it right financially, everyone's going to have to take. I know it's 25% at the moment. I think it's going to be 50% plus for the game to survive. And coaching teams.
I think Gloucester went in trying to get 50% off, didn't they, originally? I think then Wasps and London Irish have sort of really, really pushing for the salary cap to be reduced as quickly as possible. Other clubs, clearly, a lot of the other West Country guys, Bath, Bristol, Exeter, have managed their finances well, or have got, big backers who have ambition. But it's going to be scaled back, mate. As I said, I think we just better hope for an influx of TV money. But it's too dangerous to try and compare to other sports because it's its own sport in its own right. So if you compare it to rugby league, it's like, well, rugby league's a club game. Rugby union is an international game. But actually, our club game has grown and grown and grown, especially in the Premiership. Yeah. Done a wonderful job. Let's not forget that. And there is tribalism of a degree within our club game, which you need. You look at the football model; it's all club. And if we can get a happy balance once this resumes, if we can find a happy balance and people can start agreeing and conceding around the table, rugby can be in a really, really good place come sort of 5-10 years time. But until that happens, we'll just keep going around in circles.
You retired at the right time then, didn't you, Nick?
Mate, I could have got another season if this COVID didn't happen.
Could you?
Got another season, you could have got another year out yourself.
Yeah.
Ruck It with Kyran Bracken and Nick Easter, the brand new rugby podcast.
I hope you've enjoyed this week's podcast. We'll be back on Friday with an interview with the Beast. So please listen, subscribe and review on your favourite podcast. Cheers.